Hello everyone, this is Zahid Bashir, your trainer for NVIVO software. Today I would like to discuss what are incomplete arguments and how to proceed it with literature review. There are some common flaws that you need to check when you are reading an on writing. Look out incomplete arguments. The following examples suggest when you adopt the role of critical reader, you are, in a sense, interrogating the author to answer the question that you have raised in your mind. For example, what is flawful argument? Conclusion without a warrant. If you are concluding something without any uh, premise or without any evidence or without any logic or reasons to conclude that thing, it is a flawful argument. So what question you need to ask to address that flaw? Why? How do you know? If you conclude something, ask yourself why. How do you know? Warrant without a conclusion. Sometimes you provide evidence for something, but you do not conclude that evidence. So what? Why are you telling me this? What does it imply? For example, I am telling that uh, inflation in Pakistan is increasing. Now, I am providing some reason, but I am not concluding it. What does it mean? What does it imply? So it implies that due to increase in inflation, everything is going to be very expensive to buy. It means the purchasing power of the people of Pakistan is declining or decreasing. So I need to provide conclusion, whatever I am indicating. The next thing is conclusion with an adequate warrant. You need to provide adequate warrant. Warrant means the evidence, the premise, the reason. So whatever you are going to conclude, conclude it with adequate warrant. So how to find out whether the conclusion is coming with the adequate warrant? Does the evidence really mean as much as you claim? Is this evidence robust enough? Robust evidence means that the evidence must be concrete. Evidence must be supported by the fact and figure which is provided by some reliable authorities. For example, if I am claiming that inflation of Pakistan is increasing, I need to provide an evidence from some IMF report, from some State Bank of Pakistan report, and so on. So I need to have some reliable reports or reliable sources in order to justify my claim. Then, in that case, it will be a reasonable or adequate warrant. Warrant leading to an illogical conclusion. Sometimes I am providing evidence and I am concluding in a illogical manner. For example, uh, I have I have some evidence that inflation of Pakistan is increasing. And what I am concluding that due to increase in inflation, the crime rate is increasing. Now, does the increase in inflation has a direct implication on the crime rate? Maybe when the inflation is not so much high, the crime still persists. So you need to provide a logical conclusion which is directly connected with your warrant or evidence. So does this reasoning adds up or not? There are other possible conclusions. Conclusion that is not explicitly linked to the warrant. So always try to link your conclusion with the evidence you are providing. Do not make an evidence which is not relevant with the conclusion. So what are you trying to claim? What is the causal relationship between the factors? So that is something which is very important. So what we are trying to analyze, analyzing and evaluating arguments. So data need to be used in order to claim. When you attach data with your claim, it becomes warrant because you have some backing with some strong backing. For example, if I am saying that the inflation rate in Pakistan increasing. I need to provide the justification that the last year the inflation rate was 20% and now it is 23%, according to the IMF report. So this is the data that I have provided with reference to inflation, and I have also provided some reliable source like IMF or State Bank of Pakistan with reference to that data. So the claim becomes warrant. So therefore, we have claim, evidence, warrants, and backing, and these are the essential parts of an argument. For example, what would be the claim? Claim is basically an arguable statement. When you provide some statement which you can make an argument, that is known as claim. What is evidence? Evidence means data. Data that you provide to support your claim. For example, if I am claiming that inflation in Pakistan is increasing, this is a claim. Someone may ask me, how do you know that the inflation rate of Pakistan is increasing? I need to provide the evidence for that. I need to provide the data that the last year the rate of inflation was 20% according to IMF. And this year, the rate of inflation is 23%. It means 3% has increased in terms of inflation. Therefore, the inflation in Pakistan is increasing. So, warrant, an expectation that provides a link between evidence and claim. Permission to perform duties under authority means you need to provide some source that warrants that data. Like I am providing that the rate of inflation was given by IMF. That is basically the warrant because that is the authority who provide the rate of inflation. I can also use authority as a State Bank of Pakistan or any central bank of your country to warrant your claim. So next thing is backing. Context and assumption used to support the validity of the warrant and evidence. So whatever context you provided in order to support the validity of warrant and evidence. For example, I am providing a context that in Brazil there is a highest inflation rate and their economy is suffering from vulnerable condition. So that is a context that I can attach to make my argument strong. So you can provide some context. So basically, warrant employs a line of logic that justify accepting the claim. Usually, it indirect implied title, although it can be direct. For example, you should not cross the street. It is a claim. Someone says to you, "Do not cross this street." You ask why. He says that the signal light is red. That is the evidence. The unstated rule line of logic implies that a red signal light means stop. So what we already know that when we are going to cross a road, we are driving a car and we see a red signal. It means that we need to stop here. So someone says me someone says me that I need not to cross the street. It means that the right must be led. So there are the main elements that are used to form an argument for making a research case. Example, structure of an argument source adopted from Hart 2010. You need to provide data in order to make your claim strong. For example, car washes can use up to 250,000 gallons of water in the main summer week. This quantity depletes water reservoirs by 20% during a season when there is a heavy water usage. So this is some data. Now, what is your claim? Car owners should restrict washing their cars in areas of the country where there is a water shortage. Now, this is a claim. So it is basically backed by some data because you are providing data that using so much water in terms of gallons for your car washes may decrease the water reservoir by 20%. So it basically restrict you to use water from the area where water shortage is applied. So warrant, what is warrant? Water is essential and people should not waste it in times of shortage. So this is a warrant. This is an you can say an healthy comment towards uh, the unfruitful usage of the water. Now, backing. Water shortage cause inconvenience, are a danger to people and can be costly to consumer. This is because if water becomes short, you need to purchase it, and it will be a heavy cost. Especially in Pakistan, in Karachi, people used to purchase water by paying heavily, and in some parts of the world, the water is not available to or not in a drinkable proportion. So you need to provide claim along with evidence, and you need to provide warrant for making your argument strong. So a simple arguments basically come with data and organizational evidence and a logical bridge between organizational evidence and claim in order to complete your argument. So you can provide a number of claims, and you can create premises on the basis of those claims. Like if you have a claim 1, you can create premises n. If you have a claim 2, you can premises 2. So in that case, you can have multiple claims and multiple premises to create your argument, that like I have done yesterday. So what we have concluded so far: as a step 1, we select the topic. We then gathers the relevant literature, summarize the literature, and use as a premises that literature to develop our argument. Then we again survey the literature to find out the shortcomings in that literature. What are the deficiencies in the past literature that need to be addressed? And it is the step where you identify the research gap. So step number 4, survey the literature. So whenever you have created or maintained your argument using the past literature, after establishing your argument, you need to survey the literature again. The literature survey assembles, synthesizes, and analyzes the information to form the argument about the current knowledge on the topic. Actually, the purpose of surveying the literature is twofold. On the one side, it gives you some backing for making your argument more informed, and on the other side, it will also let you know that the literature has some shortage. In other words, your focus should run to summarize and evaluate the theme of the material. What is the author saying? What reasoning, logic, or argument does he or she use to say it? You need to analyze the argument of the other studies. On what is the author reasoning and logic based? You need to find out the reason, the logic of other authors. Can you see the strength and weakness in the author argument? You need to find out some strength, you need to find out some weakness. Maybe that is the starting point for your research. So the answer of each question create a logical and defensible set of conclusion or claims. It also provide the basis for addressing the research question. So you have done with the survey of literature. So step number 4 indicates that in order to make your argument valid, you need to have a survey of the literature where you can find the argument of other, you can find the strength and weakness of others' argument, how they provided the logics, the reasoning in their argument, in order to compare your argument. So the next step is critique the literature. This is one of the most important part where you basically justify the research gap for your study, because at this level you need to understand what is being done in the past, what is the current state of the research, and what need to be done in the future. So the literature critic interprets the current understanding of the topic. Current understanding means what is searched or researched till date and what is missing in the past research. So that is current understanding of the topic. So the literature critic interprets the current understanding of the topic or the area of research. It analyzes how previous knowledge answers the research question. For example, assess the methodologies and methods that have been employed previously to study the topic and evaluate the relevant relative strength and weakness of the literature. Maybe your purpose of doing a future research is based on method or methodologies that in previous research this and this method has been employed, and you find out the weakness that this and this method has not been applied to consider particular research. For example, by doing a literature review in a critical way, you identify that past studies past studies employed time series analysis, panel analysis, quantitative in nature, studying capital structure. However, uh, literature does not provide support, or literature does not provide any evidence for qualitative research on the above topic, and also it is mixed methodology. This is what I have identified by reading extensively the relevant literature. So you may also identify whether the previous literature in your domain or in the area you want to do research, having some methodology gap or not. So the gap may be based on methodology. Gap may be based on the findings of the study. Gap may be based on the fresh evidence. Gap may be contextual gap. Gap may be regional gap, and so on. You need to identify that what type of gaps are available according to literature. So the first thing I have identified here is that you need to focus the methodology and you need to use the gap in your study to address a possible contribution. The literature critics helps you to think how far the literature goes to advocate and define your stance or argument. Within your critical review, you will need to contrast different authors' ideas and form your own opinion and conclusion. So you need to understand the point of view or the argument of different authors in order to form your own opinion or conclusion, in order to justify the research gap. Because if you are repeating someone else's argument, or if you are repeating someone else's findings in your study, it means you have not developed your own argument so far. So, in order to develop your own argument, first you need to identify what arguments were already available in different research studies. So your critical review must form a coherent and cohesive argument. A coherent and cohesive argument means that you need to provide a logical arrangement of different arguments. You need to provide a logical sequence in developing an argument. For example, if I would like to discuss the capital S in pricing model, or CAPM, it was first developed in 1952, for example. Then someone make advances in that pricing model, and make a three-factor model. Then someone comes and create four-factor model. Then someone comes and create five-factor model. This is an arrangement. The concept is same. That is asset pricing. This main argument. Someone builds initial argument in the name of this. Someone builds this argument, someone builds this argument, and someone builds this argument. I cannot start my discussion from five factor model. I need to start my discussion from this, and I need to provide a logical sequence between all these arguments. So I need to conclude the final one, and I need to point out some deficiencies that have not been addressed in all these arguments. So this would be my contribution. This would be the thing that I am going to consider here as a you can say as a contribution in my study. So always remember, when you are doing a critical review of the previous study, you need to have a coherent and cohesive argument. It means you need to provide a logical sequence and connectivity between different arguments. Uh, Coherent and cohesive also means connectivity. You need to connect different arguments. Like for example, I have created some arguments yesterday. You have seen that in my first first of all I put a claim, and the claim was financial institution of developing nation are not aligned with modern requirement of AI. This was the claim. Then I provide some evidence in support of that claim. This was my first, and this was my second one. Observe that there is a word similarly, which is uh, here being used as a, you can say, connectivity, and therefore is also using as a word of connectivity. It creates cohesiveness and coherence within this you can say argument, because if I do not use similarly or therefore, then the statements would be different from each other. They do not connect align with the previous one. So in order to create connectivity between different paragraphs, you need to use similar types of words that would make your argument coherent and cohesive. So your critical review must form a coherent and cohesive argument which set in context and justify your research study. Develop an argument of advocacy. As we have discussed earlier, at a doctoral level, the literature critic must go further than sporting what is known about the subject. In other words, the argument of discovery serve as the foundation of second argument, called the argument of advocacy. So whenever you create an argument, you need to identify that whether you are advocating some other argument or whether you are discovering something new. So the argument of advocacy analyze and critique the knowledge gained from synthesis of the data produced by the discovery argument to answer the research question. This is a thesis statement. Sometimes you need to justify uh, a particular phenomena using some data by critically analyzing and criticizing the knowledge gained from the synthesis. So the data produced by the discovery argument. So you can advocate that argument, whether it is thesis that interprets what is known about the study topic or a thesis that surfaces a new problem for research. To analyze, critique the literature can be seen as the activity of looking at the possible meaning and significance of claims. So make it simple. When somebody says such and such is the case, when they are making a claim, the weather is much less good than was predicted. Now, what is next slide saying? You provide introduction with some central question that create your argument actually. Because whenever you create a research question as an introduction part, you are making an argument because it provides the aims of the study or the purpose of the study. Then you screen out your literature to review your questions which you have created here. Then you design your research in order to answer these questions. Then you finalize the instrument, whether you are going to use qualitative instrument or quantitative instrument. Then you provide the finding using your methodology that you have used, whether your research questions were answered or not. And then you form the implication of the literature. So that is basically the warrant of your overall argument. Your argument start from your research question, which you have developed using your objective, and then review your literature in order to support your claim. Then you design your methodology in order to support your analysis procedure. Then you provide findings in order to in order to validate your argument. If your finding does not prove your argument right, it means your argument was not right. But if your findings proves your argument or your claim, it means your argument was valid. So then you discuss, and then you provide the implication of your study, and then you conclude. So that is how a literature is done. So step one was topics. Step number two was reviewing the literature in order to summarize for providing the premises or providing the evidence for developing your argument. And then you compare your argument with other arguments, and then you critically assess the shortcomings of the previous study in order to identify the research gaps, and then you write the final review, what you have concluded from that. So write the review. Thesis writing transform the research study into document to inform others. Through composing, modeling, and refining, the written literature review becomes a work that accurately conveys the research and that can be understood by intended audience. So when you are ready to write up your work, you have one major task to address. How do you adequately, appropriately, and interestingly describe, explain, and justify what you have done and found out? So you need to provide justification for your argument in reviewing the literature. So to write the review, you must have addressed these questions. What was the first question for reviewing the literature? How can the literature review be used to justify the topic of your study? What formats are useful for arranging the review of the literature? You may have multiple formats. There are latest techniques like bibliography, uh, then systematic literature review. Uh, there are some simple, you can say, story writing techniques and simple literature review techniques. Then there is a argumentative techniques. So different authors apply different techniques to write their review of literature. So it's up to you which techniques is suitable to you. What is mean by criticism, and how can you be fair in your critical analysis? You need to identify whether you critically analyze the previous literature or not, because critical analysis basically identify the shortcomings of previous literature. So how do you start to write a literature review? So you need to identify how did you start. You need to provide some sequence to your literature. So this is here we have completed the part, the literature part. So I hope that you have identified this. And from Monday, we will cover different types of data collection in qualitative research techniques. We need to understand different methods of data collection, like how to conduct observation, how to conduct interview, how to conduct focus group discussion, pictures, document views, social media blogs, because these are important for conducting qualitative research. The purpose of literature was to identify how you can create an argument, how you can identify the research gap, and how you can write the review of the literature for making a qualitative research. So I will let you know the different methods of data collection in the next session, which is going to be held on Monday. And then we go to understand the research design in qualitative research, like narrative research design, phenomenological research design, participatory research design, case study, ethnographical, grounded theory, and then we will go to the analysis procedure, the data analysis procedure of qualitative research like thematic analysis, content analysis, grounded theory analysis, and so on. And then we will start a proper work on NVIVO, because after having a strong base on these criteria, we would be able to use NVIVO effectively. So, do you have any question you may ask, because the time is going to end for the session? If you have any question, you may ask. Yes, Dave, do you have any question? Somi Gul, Wakar Mohammed, please let me know, because time is going to end. The meeting may be end in any second. All right, Wakar Mohammed said no, sir. Thank you. Somi Gul, do you have any question? Dave said no question. Please, Somi Gul, have you any question you may ask? All right, then let's conclude this session and let's meet on Monday, same time. So session will be off for tomorrow and for Sunday also. We will be again. We will meet on